Hi everyone, welcome to my kitchen seed planting. I am really far behind on my seed planting, so I have been meaning to do this, so I thought I may as well just do it live, and you guys can help me decide what to plant because I always get very excited and I want to plant all the things and I don't really have space for it, but that's okay. We will just roll with it and see what we can plant. Let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from, because that's always interesting to see people from all around the world and what you've been planting lately. Need to brew my tea. So I've just made this. This is a tea from the garden. I've got grapefruit mint, lemon verbena, dehydrated limes, and calendula. So made this little brew from the garden. And I just use this coffee plunger because I don't drink coffee out of it, and then I can just push it down and not get all the floaties in my tea. Do a bit of that. Put that somewhere. All right. So this is my seed collection in here. It's not very organized. I did have it in sort of seasons, but it's got a little bit messy and I don't know, we'll see. But I do kind of roughly have like winter up the top. Then there's some flowers in here. And then this one is pretty much the tray we're going to look at, which is all my spring and summer stuff. And then the bottom one has now sort of moved into seeds that I've saved from my own garden. So it's starting to get quite full and I need to change up how I'm storing these seeds because I'm now collecting a whole lot more seeds from my garden. So I need more space. Yeah, so I thought today we'll just go through, and then I do have seed trays here. So we are going to actually plant some seeds today. I thought we could do this outside, but it is a bit too windy. Now that I'm going live, I feel like it's not windy, but it was windy. So we're just doing seed planting on the kitchen bench, which is fine. We can do whatever we want. All right. So all my seeds are sort of from different places that I've collected over the years. So I don't have one set place that I buy my seeds. And I know I do get asked all the time where I do purchase my seeds from. So I have a few that I'll go through that are some of like the main places that I do purchase seeds, but a lot of them are just mixed and random from things that I've collected over the years. So let me know if you joined any of my last seed planting lives, because what I do is I just pull out the ones that I want to plant for the season and I just pop them in this box. And that way I know when things pop up in the garden and my labels have gone missing or I haven't labeled them properly, that they're at least something that's probably going to be in this box, so I can sort of work it out based on that. So I'm going to put the seeds in here and then we're going to start planting some of them as well. And then there's all sorts of random seeds floating around. Okay, so I haven't planted anything yet. So this is the first of the season, which is pretty behind. I normally plant at the end of winter, but because I was away for 2.5 months, I haven't been able to plant any seeds. And I thought that would be quite overwhelming and I feel behind in planting seeds, but I actually don't feel too bad. Looking at my gardens and what is growing in there at the moment, I have converted a lot more of my gardens to perennials. So there is things that are just going to grow all year round without me actually having to do anything, which I feel like my garden's got my back in that respect, because it's not like I'm starting from scratch at the start of the season with nothing. I've got things that will have continued to grow. I've overwintered a few peppers and chilies, so those are starting to burst into life now. It's spring. I even found a basil plant that was hidden underneath all my cauliflower leaves. So I was pulling back a lot of the cauliflower leaves just because they were overshadowing the rest of my garden. And I found a basil plant. So that's managed to survive the winter. So I have basil. I have tomatoes that have popped up from the compost. So I have free tomatoes. They're mozzie. Bug. So I already have yellow cherry tomatoes growing. I've been eating them. So that's amazing. And yeah, I'm really happy with the amount of perennials that I have in my garden that I don't feel like annuals have to rely on so much. So that's something I'm really happy with. And moving forward, I'm just continuously planting perennials. I just planted a yellow raspberry, so I'm excited about that. You know, if anyone else is growing yellow raspberries, because those took me ages to find, and I'm so happy I found them. All right, so let's just get stuck into it. I have no order. These aren't all tomatoes or anything like that. They're all random, but these are pepper-like stripe. You can see that. So these are like a stripy tomato. I've obviously planted them before because I've opened them, but I don't think I've harvested any, so I'm definitely growing them again. Cornflowers. I love cornflowers. I have to grow these every year. These are staple edible flowers for me in my garden. The bees love them. They are so easy to dry and use throughout the year. So I always have to have cornflowers, and I grow them every year. So a lot of the time they will just pop up on their own. So we'll see, but I'll definitely plant some anyway. Black Beauty tomato. So that's a really fun one. I don't grow a lot of the bigger varieties of tomatoes. I find them hard work and they really need consistent watering, and I don't have automatic watering systems set up. So my watering is when I water the garden. So I find it a lot harder to grow these bigger tomatoes, but I'm still going to grow a few. So we'll see. See, this is what happens. I just want to grow all the things. We're going to put pretty much all the tomatoes in here anyway. So we've got ram's horn. Again, I don't think I've grown that before. It says that it's good for sauce. So it's sort of like a Roma tomato. We'll grow that. Banana legs, which is a yellow one. That bug is so annoying. I've already got a yellow cherry tomato, so I don't know if I'll grow these. We'll put them in the maybe pile. Atomic grape. So these are like a purple and green grape sized tomato. Definitely growing these. Nearly got it. Giant pumpkin. So I tried to grow this last year and I only had 2 plants, and then I went away for Christmas and everything died. So that's like a real struggle for me, is that, you know, during summer I go away a lot, and last Christmas was 45 degrees here in Perth, and like things die in like half a day if you don't look after them. So I really struggle in summer with my growing, because I do like to go away and go to the beach. So I don't think this is a good idea. I might put that on the maybe pile. Rock melon, Hale's best rock melon. Definitely growing rock melon. I love melons. Big rainbow tomato. This is one of my favorite. This is probably one of my favorite in the larger varieties of tomato. This one is sort of a yellow orangey colored tomato. So we're going to grow that. I feel like I've just got so many tomato varieties. White Beauty. I'm not sure about that. I think I'm going to skip out on that. I'm just going to pick the best ones. Big pear. I'm going to grow this one. I do like these big pear tomatoes. They're really juicy and delicious. So we're doing that. tomato. This is a Cherokee purple, and I already put a purple one in there, so I'm going to try and be good about that and not grow all of the purple tomatoes. And then we've got some pickles, some cucumber, the national pickler cucumber. Definitely growing these. I'm obsessed with pickles, so we have to have some of those growing. I think I've got quite a lot of other cucumber seeds as well. Watermelon radish. I don't know if I'll grow that. I've just gone through a whole lot of watermelon radish, and I don't want them to bolt and go to seed with our hot summers. So I think I'll pass on that for now. Eggplant. So I've already got an eggplant. I've been growing this one eggplant for like maybe 2 or 3 years, just overwintering it. So I have a white one. I don't know what it's called. It's like a white one. It's quite a big one. And so that's already got flowers, and it will start producing soon. So that's another reason I love overwintering things, because they're already established plants. They've got root systems, which means that they are more water-wise. Their roots aren't so shallow because they've already been established. So I do try and overwinter things where I can. So I've got an eggplant already on the go, so I probably won't plant anymore. I'm not a huge eggplant fan, but they are really good to have to sort of bulk up your meals. More tomatoes. Like I would wonder how many tomato varieties I have now. So I've got the Roma tomato and tomato ice, which I think is a small little whitish cherry tomato, so I'm probably not going to plant those because I do already have the yellow cherry tomato. So I need like maybe a red cherry tomato. Pineapple, which I feel like is probably similar to a big rainbow. I'm not sure. We don't need that many large tomato varieties, surely. I'll try and keep up with the comments a little bit, but my computer's actually quite far away from me. But hey, Steve and Christina. (9:45 p.m) Yeah, it's so interesting with the time zones. I think mornings kind of work better because we are 5 hours different now with daylight saving to New Zealand, and the East Coast I think is 3 hours different. Correct me if I'm wrong. And then like California is, I don't know, I think they're 5 hours difference as well. But I thought this time would kind of work. Plus this is when I was going to be planting seeds anyway. Corn. I've got all the fun corns, which is quite hard to find in WA because we do have quite strict import rules. So you've got to find things that are already here, especially with corn. So I've got the rainbow glass corn, sunflowers, giant Russian. Definitely, I am all for sunflowers. I'm going to plant sunflowers anywhere that I can. The bees love sunflowers. The leaves are edible on the sunflowers. Actually, the whole sunflower is edible. The leaves as well. And I just love them. They just, I don't know, they make me feel happy. So I'm going to plant all the sunflowers, which will be in my flower drawer. I'm running out of room here. What else have we got? Do you know, because you should really go through your seeds a lot earlier than what I'm doing it, but we're just working with it so that you can find out if you're missing anything, because I have a feeling I'm not going to have many zucchini seeds unless I've got some that I've saved myself, because I know I ran out of them. Beefsteak tomato. Don't know. I'm just going to put it in there anyway. The White Wonder cucumber. So these are the white cucumbers. I love cucumber, so I'll probably make space for that. Lebanese cucumber, definitely. My favorite of all the cucumbers is the Lebanese cucumber. They grow really quickly and you can harvest them quite young. You can even pickle them as well. Green corn, why not? Corn is actually one of the hardest things for me to grow because it does require quite a lot of water, and my gardens just don't get that much attention over Christmas. Oxheart yellow tomato. I think we've got enough yellow tomatoes. Mortgage lifter. Thai pink egg. Have you guys grown Thai pink egg tomatoes? I grew these for a few seasons. They're like a light pink tomato, sort of like a grape, bigger than a grape. Like, I don't know, but like a sort of a grape shape. And then they self-seeded. So I didn't have to grow these for a couple of years because they just kept popping up in my garden. So I might grow them again. Lemon sunflower, which is sort of a smaller, pale yellow sunflower. More corn. I think that's enough corn for now. What is that? Eggplant. No, we don't need any more eggplant. Fennel. These are seeds that I saved from my own fennel, but I think once you plant fennel once, you really don't need the seeds. Like it just continuously grows. So I have planted fennel once in my garden, and it can be a little bit like weed-like. So, but I've always got fennel, and I love fennel in the garden. It's really good for salads. You can roast the bulbs, the leaves as well. I put in salads. I'm gonna get you. And the flowers are edible, and I use the flowers all the time as well. They've got sort of like a licorice flavor. Even though I don't like licorice, I do like fennel flowers for some reason. Chilies that I have saved. I've got one chili plant already growing. Chilies are quite hard to sow. You really need to get warm, humid temperatures going. Honeydew melon. Yeah. I saved these seeds, so I'm going to grow those. I'm trying to save more of my own seeds because that way I can sort of select on the plants that I want to grow, and they're already used to growing in my garden with my conditions. So the more I save the seeds, the stronger these plants are going to get growing in my exact conditions, where a lot of these seeds that I purchase, they have been raised in completely different climates to me. So some of them are a little bit harder to grow. Tomato. I needed a little red tomato, so let's go with the tomato. More eggplant, more corn. This seems like a lot, you guys, but I have been collecting seeds for a long time, and people have gifted me their seeds when they move. I've saved seeds. I've traded seeds. Seeds are sort of currency in the gardening community, and so always swapping and trading. What else have we got in here? Sugar baby melon. So I'm going to grow one type of watermelon. I think one is enough to try and keep alive. I just need to decide what one. Last year I grew the moon and stars. So I want to grow something different this year. So either this sugar baby, or I've got candy red, which is a large one. I think I'll go sugar baby. I feel like that might be easier, less water. More grape tomatoes. That's enough. I feel like it's definitely enough tomatoes. So we've got tomatoes, we've got a few cucumbers, we've got corn. What else have we got? That's some edible flowers. There's more sunflowers to come. I'm going to probably grow every variety of sunflower I can find. Capsicum, sweet banana. Yeah, I love the sweet banana capsicum. That's probably the only capsicum I really grow these days. I find capsicums just a little bit hard work, high maintenance. So, but the banana one is prolific. It grows heaps on one plant. They're sort of like a medium size, so they're great for, you can use the whole thing in a meal, so you're not putting like half cut capsicums back in the fridge. So I love those. Here, these are all radishes and carrots. Might put those back for now. What are your favorite tomatoes? I feel like I don't need any influence to be getting more tomatoes, but let me know what your favorite tomato is. So these ones are a lot of the ones that I've saved. These are sort of random in types of seasons. So who knows what we've got in here. Pumpkin. We're definitely doing pumpkin again. I got a couple pumpkin last season, but I didn't really go hard on the pumpkins because in a few years back, I went like all in with pumpkins and I grew, I think, maybe 18 or more pumpkins, which lasted me the whole year. So I think I'm going to up my pumpkins just so I have a lot more of them in storage so I can use those for meals throughout the year. And this year, I always get butternut pumpkins popping up in the compost, but I want to grow like a really big pumpkin. So I'm thinking sort of either, what are those gray ones? There's a couple different types, like the Jarrahdale pumpkin. Maybe that will be a good one. I don't know if I have any of those seeds. We'll see. So I've got Lakota pumpkin. I wasn't a huge fan of these. They're like a little orange one. They're quite nutty. Zinnia. Tropical fruit. Oh, so these are just random fruits that I've saved from supermarket fruits. Like, I can't remember what those ones were. Good labeling. Custard apple. Should really give that a go. Might do that. Giant sunflowers. We will be growing those. Jack pumpkins. Candy cane peppers. Okay, I lied. This is another capsicum that I love. Candy cane peppers. They're like stripy, really fun, really delicious, prolific. Heaps on a plant. Microgreens. Nobody's got time for those. Strawberries. No. Planting from seed, strawberries from seed takes a long time. Like, you've got to be so patient. I'm not. I just have strawberries already growing in my garden as perennials, so I can take the runners and move those around and sort of make strawberry patches because I just tend not to grow them from seed. Market more cucumbers. Those are the larger cucumbers. No idea, but those are definitely pumpkin seeds. They look sort of like butternut. Good labeling. What else have we got in here? Climbing spinach, strawberry guavas, broad beans. I'm not a fan of broad beans. I'm not really a bean fan, to be honest. There's heaps of sunflowers just like floating in the bottom here. So no idea what color these are. They've just fallen out of the packages. So I'll be planting all of those, all the sunflowers. And I just like to plant those in between my fruit trees and sort of anywhere I can find space really for the sunflowers. They attract lots of bees for pollinating my fruit trees. So we've got more sunflowers. These are sunflowers too. Royal Velvet and Rainbow. No idea what the rainbow ones are. Rosella. I haven't managed to get this to take off. I always plant them and then I'll get them to seedling size and then, I don't know, just forget about them or something. And so I really do want to get a Rosella growing because these are really good for tea. So I drink a lot of tea, so let's try and get those. Speaking of tea, I forgot about my tea. Yep, that's a good brew. Grapefruit mint, dehydrated lime, calendula, lemon verbena. What else have we got in here? I feel like we're missing a few herbs. Oh, yes, definitely. I've got onto this and I can't stop with the gourds. So these are the bottle gourds. So fun to grow, produce a whole lot of food. And this year I want to grow the ones that you can make into bowls. So I don't know if I've got those. These ones are the long ones. More cornflowers. We already got cornflowers in the mix. Oh no, these are the long ones. So I grew these ones last year. These ones were really fun to grow. They kind of, you can use them as similar to a zucchini, like a summer squash, and huge, like over a meter. So those ones are definitely getting planted. And I grew them in the front gardens, and because I've got the cages around my raised garden beds for the shade cloth, it gives me a lot more structures to grow things up vertically. Feverfew. Here come some of the herbs and the flowers. Basil. We need basil. I think I've actually got a whole lot of basil seeds outside because I just had so many. I didn't really want to, I could never fit them in here. What is in here? I have no idea. This is a very eclectic mix in this drawer. A lot of radishes, eggplant, bush beans, okay. I know this is all my winter stuff up here, so you don't need that. That is done. So that is a lot. I feel like I'm still missing a lot. But that way I can sort of go through and find out what I'm missing, if I need to purchase any seeds, or just work with what I've got. I think I'll probably just work with what I've got. Definitely got basil outside. What else do I want to grow? I feel like I haven't even really thought about it, so I'm just going to plant what I've got, use what I have, do what I can. Look at the seeds have just fallen out everywhere. There's just a whole lot of random seeds. I'm just going to throw handfuls of these in the garden, see what happens. Actually, let's just put them in here now. I have no idea what those are, but we'll find out. So I've got this pot here. This is going to go under my grow light. So I have a grow light for this one here. So we'll pop some seeds in here. I've got some seed trays here. These ones are my individual little seed trays. And then I've got a few like recycled seed trays that I've got like packs of 4. And then there's a couple of 6 as well. So do those for the tomatoes, cucumbers, label them, do our best to label them. I don't really care. Like, I know you should really label your seeds, especially if you want to save seeds from them, but I much prefer just growing randomly all throughout my garden beds. So that makes it really hard to label things because I would have to have a lot of labels because they're everywhere. But that's just how I like to garden, and that's just works for me. I think once I get a little bit more serious about saving seeds, I'm going to have to be a lot more strict on that and spread out when I'm planting things so they're not cross-pollinating. At the moment, I'm just saving seeds, and they're probably all mixtures of things. I'm saving them for me to grow in my garden, so I'm okay with that. And it's sort of like a surprise as well, what I'm going to get, which I like. Sorry, I'm like not keeping up with these comments because my computer's too far away. It's wet again in New South Wales. Peas are rusted. Oh, it's so hard when you just get hit with continuous weather. We have had a decent amount of rain, I think, from what I've gathered, because I haven't been here, but it's definitely warming up here. We've had some really good days, so that's our next problem, is going to be too much sun. And I'll be putting the shades down on my planters out the front, because that's just crucial for us here in Perth. It's just too hot. Things cook. It's like insane heat. It's really dry heat too. Good to keep the roots in the ground. Yeah, so a lot of my plants I'm just cutting off at the base and leaving the roots in the ground and letting those die back. And I try not to disturb the soil where I can. Hi from Nanup. I love it down there. It's so green. Two destructive dogs. Oh, I've had a little bit of trouble with my dog when he was young, but he wasn't too bad. I did fence off my garden once, and I went to work, and he got into the fenced garden and couldn't get out. So he spent, I don't know how long, hours locked in my garden, and there was nothing left. He decapitated my fruit trees. So my feijoa trees, instead of having like a one single main stem, because he cut them off at the base, they've sprouted like hundreds of stems. So they're a lot bushier. But other than that, he wasn't so bad at that, but he was definitely terrible at chewing furniture. We had no outdoor furniture for like 2 years. So I don't really have any tips for that in terms of stopping your dogs destroying your gardens. I feel like if you add new things in, when I did my pallet planters, if they were empty and like fresh soil, he'd hop in there and like mess around. But if they were planted and he was used to them, he seemed to not care. It was just like any change, he was like, oh, that's different. I'm going to destroy it. But now he's on the couch. You can probably hear him snoring soon, because that's what he does most of the day. Oh, feeding the deer. Yeah, everyone has different pests, and it's just every year is different. I feel like some years you get an onslaught of certain pests, and some years you just get a different one. So sun gold cherry tomatoes. Oh, so many tomatoes. What types of flowers are the best for planting around vegetables? So I always plant as many flowers as I can. I think diversity and having different types of flowers is such a great idea, because just like us, insects don't like the same flowers. So the more diversity you have, the better. Calendula is one of my favorites. Cornflowers in spring and summer. Zinnias, again, zinnias attract a lot of butterflies as well, because they have more nectar. I plant lavender between my fruit trees, because at the moment my lavender is in full bloom. I know lavender blooms differently in different climates. So for me, lavender is off right now. And my feijoas are about to flower, and my fruit trees, like my citrus, are all flowering. So the fact that my lavender is just hive of bees right next to my fruit trees is going to help with that pollination, because I already have a lot of bees in my garden. And that is a perennial that I don't have to plant. It's just there all the time. So it's another win for perennials in the garden. But I'm going to plant cornflowers, sunflowers. What else? I've got pansies in the garden at the moment, nasturtiums everywhere. I think that's mainly it. Snapdragons I plant in winter. But yeah. Mildew. Yeah, you can do milk with the powdery mildew. You just mix, I think it's 1-to-1 or something, and spray it on. The other great thing is, if you are getting mildew, is to just prune off a lot of the lower leaves and stuff to get that airflow, because that is one of the really bad things about having a lot of rain is that you get a lot of moisture. So you've got to try and get that airflow through and not let water sit on the leaves as much as you can. And so if you prune off the bottom leaves, especially with zucchinis, prune off the bottom leaves, and that lets in a lot more airflow and opens it up so that things aren't just sitting wet, because that is never good. And most plants don't like their leaves being watered, so try and water underneath the plants as well. All right, so I'm going to plant some of these now because I need to get plants in the ground. Oh my God, you guys. So some of these I'm going to plant in these seed trays. Some of them I'm going to direct sow. Most of them I will probably plant in seed trays at the moment because we're still getting a little bit of cooler nights. And then I'll chuck them out in the garden. Plus I have hardly any room still. I feel like I still have so many cauliflowers coming through. My gardens are full of food. So I'm just trying to make gaps where I can, and then I'm just going to start putting plants in those gaps. And that way my transition will be quite smooth. I will have things growing at all different times. Like at the moment, I'm already eating tomatoes. That's crazy because they've been growing all winter. They're huge plants too. Okay, sugar baby. Let's get these planted. So these ones, quite small seeds. So I'm going to plant, I think, 4 of these sugar baby seeds. Let's tilt this a bit so you can see what I'm doing a little bit better. Now you can't see my head. Okay, so with the seeds, I'm just going to plant them. You can tell which way out to plant the seed by, there's like a rounded top. So one end is rounded, one end is like skinnier, and that's the way that it's going to grow and come off the seed. So you can plant them that way down, but if you aren't sure, just plant them horizontal and then the seeds will right themselves the right way up, because if you did plant them upside down, they'll still figure it out, but that will take a lot more energy. So if you aren't sure, just plant them flat, but I'm going to plant mine with the skinny end slightly facing down. And I just put them on the soil first. I don't really dig a hole. I just sort of lay them on the soil, and then I have a container of extra soil and I just sprinkle a little bit on top. So you want about as much soil on top as the seed is in size. So just put that on there. And then I will take these out and I will use the misting setting on the hose. And that way it doesn't like blast all the soil off the top of them. So just use a light misting if you can. If you've got that setting on your hose, it's really handy to do. And we'll label these with a marker that is waterproof, because that's enough. I've done that before, like labeled all my things, thought I was just on top of the world, and then went to water all my plants and all the labels washed off. I'm just labeling is not it for me. I don't know. Some people are really organized, and that's the type of gardening that they like to do, and they like to have everything organized. They like to have their labels, but I'm more chaotic and wild. That's the great thing about gardening, is that it's all up to you. There's no set rules. You can do it however you want to do it. It is your canvas to create. So I've forgotten already. Sugar baby. Done. Next up, let's do some tomatoes, because we have a lot of those to do. And I want to get some growing. Watermelons are definitely top of the list because they take quite a long time to grow. So you want to get your watermelons in as soon as possible so that they have enough time to establish a good vine and then produce watermelons. If you plant them too late in the season, they won't have time, and you'll be getting tiny little watermelons when we're cooling off in autumn, and they won't have time to fully develop. And you'll sort of be racing against the clock on the weather. So yeah, you want to get your watermelons and your pumpkins in as soon as you can. Oh man, so many decisions on tomatoes. Okay. Well, I wanted to go, let's just go with these two first. So the stripy ones, because those look fun, and the big pear, because these produce a lot of food on like a single plant. You're going to get a lot of food. And with small space gardening, we want to try and maximize the amount of food we can get on each plant, because I want to grow all the food. Oh my God, they're just loose in here. Okay, so where am I going to plant these? How many big pear tomato plants do I want to grow? So I'll grow more than I need because some of them might be not very good. Some of them might die. So I will plant a little extra than I need. So we'll probably plant them let's plant them in this 6 tray. And I'll do 2 varieties in the 6 tray, but I'll do multiple seeds in each cell. So these cells are quite big. And once the tomatoes get a few leaves on them, I'll repot them up into a bigger container, and then I'll repot them probably one more time before they hit the garden. Depending on how much time I've got, let's see. Some of these are all stuck together. So I'm going to do like maybe 3 or 4 in each cell, which will give me more than enough. And if you've got extra seedlings that you can't fit in your garden, you can always give them away. You can trade them with other people for different varieties. Or the other thing I sometimes do is I'll just let them stay in the containers a little bit longer. So I'll plant some into the garden and then I'll keep a few behind in seed trays, and they'll just grow a bit slower in the seed tray because they're running out of nutrients. And then a few weeks later, plant them in the garden, and that will give me some succession because the other ones that I planted in the garden will have taken off with having more access to more nutrients. So that's sort of another way that I do some succession planting. All right, so tomato seeds are tiny, so you don't need much soil on top of these. And you want to try and make sure you don't have any chunks. Like, you can sieve your soil if you want to get out the bigger pieces of bark, because those can block the light and really block the growth of the seedlings. This stuff's not too bad. I mean, it does. I didn't sieve this stuff. If they grow, survival of the fittest around here. But if you wanted to be good, you could make sure your soil is nice and fine, a good mix of sort of potting mix and compost. And I do like to put a little bit of sandy soil from my garden in there to help with the drainage. I haven't put any in this today because I was sort of low on time and I just wanted to get things in the ground, because sometimes that's just the most important thing, is to get them out of the packet and into the ground, because they're going to grow, have more chance growing in the soil than they are in these packets. So I've already forgotten what I was doing. Pear. All right, so we'll do that in that side, and then the other side, I'm going to do another variety of tomato. Yeah, sometimes carry with your mildew. If it gets too bad, like usually you want to try and keep on top of it, and I'll remove some of those leaves if they're starting to get mildew. But if it is just getting out of control, sometimes that plant is just going to be really hard to keep alive, and it's just not really worth it. So it's just like over here we get really bad green caterpillars and aphids I get it on my kale and all my brassicas if I grow them too far into this warmer season. And most of the time I just give up on those and I'll just pull them out because they're just taking up space in my garden and not producing. And sometimes you just have to call it. And there's I could grow kale all year round actually, if I want to grow kale in the shade in summer, but it's a risk as well with having a lot more activity with the little white butterflies. So most of the time I just don't. It's just more hassle than it's worth for me to try and do that. Oh. If you have a larger garden and you have the space available to use, then it's easier. But if you have a small garden and you really need to make the most of every space, sometimes you do just have to call it. And you'll get to know your garden. The more you grow, the more you try things out. That's why it's really good to experiment, even with a few things each year. Try something new. Try growing in new places. Try different varieties. Always, you've got your go-tos that work well, but if you experiment and try new things, you will learn a lot quicker than being too scared to fail at something or being worried about it not growing. Just give it a go. So that one was the pepper stripe. So another good thing about growing from seed is that it is a little bit more economical. So if you plant a few seeds and they don't grow, you want to go outside. Okay, hold on. He normally barks in my lives, so that's a win. So don't plant all your seeds either. Just plant a few in different places. It's another reason I just love planting things in different places, because if I plant these, what was I planting? The big pear tomatoes, and I put them all in one spot, and that spot is too hot or something happens to that spot and they're all gone. If I've planted them in different locations, I have more of a chance of having success. So spreading the risk in all aspects of my gardening, not putting all my eggs in one basket, is how I like to garden. It seems to have worked for me. So that is just what I like to do. Oh my God, we're getting up here for nearly an hour of me talking about seeds. Any tips from what to grow in shaded areas with no sun? Grow smaller plants, I think. And if you're wanting to grow something and you just don't have the adequate amount of sunlight, I would grow cherry tomatoes over larger tomatoes. They're going to take less energy. Sweet potato seems to grow pretty well in shady areas. Or grow in pots. It's another thing. I have plenty of space that I could dig into my garden and plant things, but I sometimes just plant in pots for the sheer reason that I can move them around and either chase the sun or get away from the sun. That works as well. Especially here in Perth, summer is definitely about reducing the amount of midday sun and heat to keep things alive. Let's do a few more. Oh my gosh, okay. Honeydew melon. So I saved these seeds. I got so many of them. That's like one of the magic things about growing your own food and saving the seeds, is that you may have one plant, and that one plant is going to turn into hundreds and hundreds of seeds. Then each one of these is a plant, and then each one of those is hundreds more seeds. It's crazy, like the amount of food you can grow from one plant and saving the seeds. This is so, like, even one melon is going to grow quite a few melons on that one melon plant. Just gonna do one in each cell. Is this too many melons? Definitely. The other thing I do with my seeds is I'll often pick, I mean, I haven't kind of, I don't know if I've done that this year or not, but I tend to pick a main thing that I want to grow, and then that will be most of my energy and most of my space will go into that thing, and then I'll just have a few of the other things around it. So for instance, one year I was like really focused on growing a whole lot of pumpkins, and so pumpkins were my main crop, and then I had obviously still tomatoes and all the things, but my main focus was on pumpkins. And one year I did cucumbers, and so I grew heaps and heaps of different cucumbers, and those were my main priority. This year, I think I'm going to prioritize tomatoes, because I want to make my own sauces. So I've got a few more sauce variety of tomatoes, like the Roma ones, the big pear, those sort of things that I can use to make sauces, so I can preserve sauce and chutneys, because I love those. I'm trying to replace a lot of the things that I love with things that I am making and preserving. So pickles, I'm obsessed with pickles, so I have been making a lot of my own pickles, and I pickle everything. I don't just pickle cucumbers. So the next thing that I love and consume a lot is chutneys and like condiments. So I love sauces. I love having chutneys and relishes. So those are the next things that I really want to focus on making, because that way I can be more self-sufficient in those areas, and tomatoes will be a really good base for that, for making those chutneys and relishes. I've already forgotten honeydew melon. Yeah. All right, so if you've got any questions, I'm going to answer as many as I can now. I will work on a video for saving seeds as well, because I have heaps in the garden that I need to save. I've been saving a few. I've got calendula that I need to save. And it's really interesting actually with growing calendula in different gardens. The ones out the front, I've been harvesting so much of as many of the calendula flowers as I can. And I've got some here that I've been sort of drying out. So these, I've also just used them all the time in my salads and my teas. But because I've been harvesting those calendulas all the time, they are just producing heaps more flowers, whereas there's one plant out the back and I haven't harvested pretty much any flowers off it, and it's gone to seed, and then now it's stopped producing more flowers. And that's because the plant has done what it needed to do. It's made more seeds for another generation. And so it's sort of like, I'm done now. So that production of that plant is slowed right down to being like one flower every now and then. So I'm going to save the seeds off that one and just continuously keep harvesting off the other ones. But that's interesting because, you know, the more you harvest, the more you're going to get. And that's the same with so many things in your garden. Don't let your tomatoes go really, really ripe. Try and harvest them as quick as you can. They are going to be tastier if you are letting them ripen on the vine, but sometimes just harvesting them when they are ripe is going to make the plant produce a whole lot more, because it is like, I don't have any seeds. The predators have taken my seeds. It's actually such a nice day today, now that the wind has stopped. Okay, let's see. Oh, so I didn't see any zucchinis popping up in here, so I'm going to have to get some zucchinis. Don't mind Tama having a drink. And so I've got pumpkins. I need to get some zucchinis. Surely I have zucchini seeds somewhere. Found one lonely bee. Best tips for growing melons in the wet season. I haven't done that before, but I imagine it would be very similar in terms of you'll be getting a lot of mildew, you'll be getting a lot of moisture. So just trying to reduce that as much as you can. You can mound up melons as well, like put a big mound of compost and then plant the melon on top, and that way it's not going to get waterlogged, because the water will sort of run off it more. It'll be higher up. Other thing you could do, I mean, depending on how much space you have, you can grow melons vertically. I did that last year. I grew a melon in a container, and I just trained the vine up, and then I just had to support the melons with some like sort of stretchiest fabric so that they didn't snap off. But that's another great way to sort of get them off the ground, get them away from that moisture, get some airflow going through. And yeah, I mean, they were a smaller sort of, I just chose like a smaller sort of variety to do that with, rather than trying to grow like a massive one vertically. But yeah, I think we don't utilize enough vertical space. There's so much more that we can do with vertical space. So that's something else that, I mean, I've been working on a lot, but I'm going to try and maximize again this year, is my vertical space, because yeah, there's so many benefits to growing vertically, and also you can grow more food if you're using up that space that otherwise wouldn't be used. Have you grown custard apple? Save some seeds. So yeah, I saved seeds from a custard apple. I have planted them a couple times, and then I've got them to seedling size, and then I've sort of forgotten about them and not potted them into a bigger pot. So I'm going to try them again. I've actually got a whole bunch of random seeds that I saved from fruit. So I'm going to plant heaps of those, because why not? I mean, I need to get them out of those packets and into the soil. I feel like custard apple will be quite hard to grow here, but and I know it's very susceptible to fruit fly because it's got such soft skin. So you just have to consider that as well. And I have not grown a lot of food that has been so susceptible to fruit fly, but now I am getting a lot more. Like I've got my guavas and my feijoas, and even my mandarins got stung. So it's not something I've ever had to worry about, but definitely more so now. I'm getting a lot more fruit fly issues. So it's fun. But yeah, that's probably it. I still have heaps of seeds to plant, but I don't want to keep you here all day. So I'll get busy planting the rest of these, and I'll keep you updated with how they're growing. I'm going to grow them inside. So for the next few weeks, they will be inside. Probably the sunflowers. I might put all the sunflowers actually in this one here, because it doesn't matter if they're labeled or not. I'm just going to put sunflowers everywhere. And this one will go under the grow light. So if I was to be growing chilies and capsicums, that's where I would put them. I've got a few capsicums in there actually. So I might put some, I've got a little bit of extra room to put under the grow light. But it's pretty warm at the moment inside. So they'll all be fine. And then I'll transplant them out into the garden when I have room. So I've got to go harvest a massive cauliflower, and I'll be eating that for dinner tonight. I think I'm going to do cauliflower fried rice. Be good. Lots of veggies from the garden. Yeah, thanks for joining me. Hopefully get back onto a schedule soon. Things have been a little bit random, but I want to do weekly lives. So if you have any suggestions for what you want to see live, I do cooking, I plant seeds. I would love to take you out into the garden live. It's just always, because I am in this is always hard to say. I am in an urban environment. There's often a lot of noises, like people mowing the lawns or wind. Like at the moment, someone's weed eating. I don't know what you guys call it. A weed whacking something. And it's really loud. So I had to be inside today. Preserving tomatoes. Yeah, for sure. I will definitely be doing that when I can get these tomatoes up and growing. I want to make my own tomato sauces for sure. So I've done a few chili sauces. But yeah, sauces and relishes. That is my plan for this summer. I am going to grow all the things to make that, and I am going to do heaps more preserving. So yeah. Thanks so much for joining, and I will catch you in the next live very soon. I hope you all have an awesome day and get some seeds in the ground.